Alright, in this video I'd like to quickly demonstrate the use of Power BI Desktop. When you open it up, it gives you this window pop-up that suggests, well, it gives you some shortcut ways to get to the things that you normally would get to. If you signed in, that would facilitate your ability to publish out to a hosting platform where you could actually push your dashboards there and have other people view them, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just using the default software out of the box. I'm not going to log in or pay for anything. I'm just going to use what's there. Some things you can do is click on tutorials and go learn more about it. This software is reported to be updated every month, so if you notice in the lower right here it says update available. So I don't know how this will continue to change in the future, but they're always adding features. They say that in their web service, the hosted platform, that they update that weekly, and then this desktop piece of software gets updated monthly. If I were to click on any of the things here, I can, it'll give me a shortcut to place things that I can do anyway. It doesn't go away forever. I'm going to just close this and kind of do something similar. So right now this thing is empty. I've got a canvas. This is my report view, as they call it, even though a report is a sequence of pages, so don't ask me about the terminology there. Right now I've got no data in here, but I'll pull in a sample set of data from an Excel file. So I will click on Get Data, and click on Excel, and I'm going to use this file here that says financial sample. And whether I was connecting to a database or a workbook in Excel or other data sources, it'll often give me a list of the tables of data that are available in there. There's a sheet in this particular set of data called financials. If I click on this, if I click on, let me unclick that and click on this one, oh, interesting, looks like there's data on that page as well. Alright, so be it. I thought one would be empty and one wouldn't be. So I can see a preview of the data that's in this data set. It looks like there is a list, it's a record of sales that has taken place somewhere, and it's broken down by several categories that would be very amenable to putting it into a pivot table. For example, I've got dates and subsets of dates and all kinds of financial metrics. One thing I can do from here is I can click on Edit, and it's not as critical in this case, but something I can do from this window is create new columns of data, as well as I can filter things. So maybe there are millions of records here and I only want a subset of that. Maybe I only want a particular product or country to be involved, and so it doesn't really make sense to involve millions of rows of records of things that I don't care about. And so if I wanted to, maybe I could just click one thing. In this particular data set, it looks like there may only be 700 rows, but I've got some other sample data that has like over 10 million rows in it, and so filtering might be relevant in some cases. In this case, I'm not going to use any particular special filters. I'm just going to import the data, and in doing so I've got one table over here on the side, and here are the fields that are in it. Note that there's this little summation symbol here for the items that have been identified as numeric. Now sometimes it might get some things wrong. For example, well, let me go over to the data view here. This is similar to what we saw when we were importing. If I were to click on any particular column, such as date, I had to pause there for a second because I was looking for something I wasn't finding, and apparently what I'm looking for is if I click on edit queries, it kind of goes back to that import window, and I can set the types. And so right now this is set as date in the drop down, but in some of the exercises you might do, you'll find that when it comes in, it just comes in as regular text, and you have to change the format, and otherwise it doesn't work properly. Another thing that's actually really important to consider is that you can add in new columns of data, and so most likely clicking on new column of data, you can do it here or you can do it in the other window as well, but you can create new columns of data, and this is important because in their own documentation they say that the majority of your time using Power BI is going to be spent creating columns of data that are somehow calculations of other columns of data. Um, this isn't really an ideal data set to do it in, but sometimes you might want to combine two different columns of data. So I might call something seg country, and I could do something like financials. So I just clicked on it, and comma space, click on that. Oops, oh, I messed it up. And financials, and it's going to give me all the list of things here, and I'll select country. So I do that, and it creates a new column of data. Typically, if I were combining things like model number or one of the examples they give you actually is combining country and zip code in order to be able to better do visualizations as it relates to maps. Slicing up dates is also a common thing. You can take from a particular date like this, create additional columns like month and year, and where it's without that, you couldn't do things like show the changes of how something's doing on a month-by-month basis over the course of a year, maybe doing a line chart of sales and something of that nature. Okay, well, let me return back over to this interface and just click on something numeric. So if I click on sales, by default it creates a bar chart here, and if I mouse over it, I see the numbers. So this looks like the sum of sales in the entire data set. If I click on something that's categorical in addition to that, then it will throw that on another axis. It's pretty good at guessing what would be a good thing to do. You can resize it, and you can put multiple things on there. So maybe if I'll click over here, and instead of, well, I could do sales again, and it creates another one, except maybe this time I'll do it by product line. So now I've got product line, and now I've got country, and then if I were to start clicking on individual columns, the two visualizations are related to one another, and you can see how things divide out. If I were to click on here, you can't hurt anything, so one thing that's kind of fun to do is just click through everything that's there and just see what changes and get a feel for things. Tabular data is maybe what you're a little bit more used to, and if I wanted to make it so I could see it better, I could go over here and change the size, so then you can actually read it. And then of course now I'm filtering it based on product lines, so pretty cool stuff. One of the funner things is to use geographic maps. Not on that one, I was selecting the wrong thing on that one. And so you can see kind of circles which indicate the relative sales in a given area. So if I mouse over it, I can see the sum of sales. So there are a lot of different variations that I could do of all these visualizations. I have supplied a tutorial in the folder where I'm going to put this video, which is going to show you how to do some amazing things in a step-by-step format, but this will definitely give you an idea of how to get started and how it works from a high level. One last thing I'll demonstrate is that what I did in this case was I didn't start with any type of Power BI project. I just started from scratch and imported some data. Let me just show you one other thing that you could do. Let me open up a project. So this is a pre-existing one where data has already been imported. It'll take it a minute. And so let's kind of compare and contrast that to what I was just working with. So in this case, I've got a whole bunch of tables here, and if I click on this view, I could then kind of click through each of the data sets to see what's in them. One thing that you might notice is that they heavily feature the use of ID columns, which indicates that there's a likelihood that they're going to be related. And in fact, if you go over to this relationship page, you can see all the different sources of data and how they relate to one another. And because they're related, I can do things such as select a numeric field like total sales, and then add on something else like let's go with date by year, or maybe by month. Once I were through creating a dashboard or a report with a lot of different pages, if I were paying for the Microsoft service that's hosted, I could click publish and push my stuff out. So if you're working in an organization, you know there's a high likelihood that you could make really fantastic, useful dashboards to share with everyone, and then by subscribing to a service, whether it's in Power BI or Tableau, you can then share those with others, and then depending on who they are, they're probably going to drill down to things that matter to them. So maybe if somebody's just overseeing a particular product line, I could pull something down here like a slicer, and add to this slicer the idea of product, and then maybe somebody could see a whole screen full of things that all relate to their particular product that they're managing. Maybe I could have a map on here, so you can see why in many organizations they'll have upwards of 1,000 dashboards, because people are assigned to different areas of responsibility, and by messing around with this data that could be updated really on a hourly basis or even faster, they can know what's going on and make decisions based on this information. So if you can do dashboarding and visualization, you can be a very important asset to your company.